Hey guys, another round 2 battle for you guys here on JellyBellyJoe, and it's an interesting battle actually, and throughout the entirety I'm playing quite stealthy with my units in this, so that's the reason why this is the battle of the hidden foe, because I'm pretty much always sat inside of a forest during this battle trying to have the element of surprise. But it's a good battle nonetheless guys, and I really did enjoy it. This is a 2v2, we got Athens and Sparta versus Macedon and me playing as Egypt, so very Mediterranean based, but a very good battle. Hope you guys enjoy. So it's time to get into battle number 6 of my Rome 2 online battle series here on JellyBellyJoe. So this battle was pitched against the Athens or Athena and Sparta versus me playing as Egyptians and my teammate playing as Macedon. So a fairly Greek orientated battle at this part here. So this was one of the most interesting battles I've played, for the simple fact that it's a 2v2, so it's a bit of a bigger scale than what I'm used to playing 1v1s, although I like the 1v1s because you get that kind of really intimate tactical feel to it and you're in control. 2v2 just adds something more to the game in my opinion as a whole anyway. So my unit choices were fairly simple, to be quite honest. We had 4 groups of Cretan archers. Now I've said before in my previous videos that my Cretan archers are by far my most favourite unit on this game for how effective they are, and in my opinion are the best ranged unit in the game. I saw a conversation on the forums and people couldn't make up the decision, but I personally have made up my decision. So then I have 4 groups of Galatian swordsmen, and they are very good defensive units, and I backed those up with 3 groups of peltas. Now you would see, if you've seen my Macedon battle, that I used an entire army of peltas pretty much, but in this I was using just peltas as a more offensive unit to back up my Galatians on the front line. I thought if my Galatians could be a defensive unit and take the first incoming blow from the attacking Spartans, then I'd be able to then hit back with my peltas by charging through the lines, which was kind of my intention with the unit choices. But as you can see here, we get the distinct advantage by pushing them back down the hill, which makes Rawr actually want to come back round and try and gain some equal ground on me. Now he knows I've generally got the advantage when it comes to Cretan archers, etc, etc, because he's playing a Sparta, and that's quite a common choice of his. Let's just say he plays a Sparta a lot, and I knew that his archers were nowhere near to the level of mine, so range wise and damage wise that would be, so I knew I had the advantage in that respect. So I was trying to use my Cretans to the best of my ability, because they were quite a decisive unit in this game. I had lots of cavalry actually. I had 2 groups of shot cavalry including my general unit, and 2 groups of normal citizen fighting cavalry. That was the same principle and the same kind of technique as I went for with my infantry, that if I could hold him back with a defensive line, a more defensive unit, that I could smash them with the shot cavalry or an offensive unit, and that was kind of my whole entire plan here. Now as you can see, he's trying to make me waste my Cretan's ammo actually on a shielded unit, and I do fall for that a little bit at the beginning, and then I kind of catch on to what he's trying to make me do. So I'm trying to keep his cavalry away from my men. So at this point we're just kind of in the skirmisher phase of the entire battle, and nothing much is really happening. But as you can see here, the Athens, or the opposing foe that's opposing my ally, they go into some archer engagements there, and it's Cretans on both sides pretty much, so it's quite an equal battle on his side I suppose at that point, apart from we have the tree and hill advantage, which is an extinct advantage. Now as you can see over here actually, while the camera's panned round, my opponent has a large cavalry force. He's actually managed to try and flank round without being seen at all, to try and flank right into the side of the Athenians, or whatever you want to call them. So that all works perfectly well until his units get seen a little bit later on, but that's not a big issue in my opinion. So at this point here I'm trying to tell my archers to stop firing, because they're firing at a shielded unit and they're really not doing that much damage. I should say there's 4 groups shooting at them and they're killing about 30 after about 4 volleys. Sorry,
more than 4 volleys, it would probably be about 6 or 7 volleys, then it's really not worth the ammunition that I'm spending on them. So at this point, I'm just trying to hold fire and wait for him to make the first move. Now at this point, he knows that he ain't going to be able to flank round anymore without me shifting my men, and he knows I have a distinct advantage in the field. So he starts to advance his whole army forward on my side. As you can see, I'm trying to move my peltas forward. I was trying to stay with the hill advantage as much as possible, but I didn't want the Spartans getting hold of the trees that I was in, that you can see I'm in the battle, because that's something I didn't want to give them, was the element of stealth to flank round anyway. Even though I would have known they were there, I do not like fighting in forests, because it's awkward to get my camera in there in the first place and see how things are actually going. You have to rely on flags, and that can be awkward sometimes, especially when there's trees in the way. So definitely try and keep combat out of forests usually. Well, that's probably something to do with me playing as Romans quite a lot. But at this point here, I'm trying to tell my Cretan archers to hold fire, because I take them off fire at will, but sometimes when units come into the radius like here, they start firing. Now at this point, I told them to start firing because he was trying to do a charge at my archers there. I don't know what he was thinking, but he sacrificed one of his cav units. I think he knew he sacrificed one of his cav units in this particular engagement here, just to try and scare my Cretan archers and catch one of them off guard. Now, I'm not sure the reasons for this, but he was quickly routed by my cavalry units, which were able to quickly pop out and deal with it before he managed to reach my archers. You can see here, I'm still trying to keep back his forces from advancing, but at this point he's kind of losing quite a lot of men to my archers, for the simple fact that he's not really pushing forward in any great numbers, and it's allowing me to target his groups one by one, which is a bit of an advantage. Now at this point, the battle between my ally and his foe is going fairly well. It's just in skirmisher type of thing where it's back and forth, and it's mainly about the cavalry, which I told you about, that do get found, and there's a bit of combat on the side there, but apart from that, there's not really much going on that side. But as you can see here, this is the bit where he starts to form up his main bulk of his infantry. Now what I mean by that is he starts to actually maneuver into certain formations with certain groups of men ready to attack. Now I'm feeling pretty confident at this point, because I have the tree cover. He doesn't know what units I have in there properly, because throughout the entirety of this game I don't think he's ever actually seen my peltasts on the field, so he doesn't actually know I have those. He might have seen one or two groups of my Galatians, but even then he doesn't know what I actually have inside the trees until he gets closer. So it's an advantage which I'm going to try and take full advantage of here, and use to the best of my ability. But at this point here, he's doing something quite clever, and I didn't know how to combat it at the time, and that is, I thought if I just do a full-on just shred my front lines, which are kind of the defensive ranged and backing up the ranged with the cav line, and kind of retreat and leave it to my infantry to hold the line there at the front, because he's pushing with the cavalry on the side. They're trying to catch my general unit. In fact, that's not my general unit, my cav unit, sorry. And I thought if I move him back, then he won't be able to do that, but then at the same time it kind of loosens my flank up a bit for his cav units, which becomes a bit of an issue in the battle. But at this point I'm still feeling pretty confident, because I've moved my peltas round to the right flank to try and hold off that big bulk of infantry. Now looking at the statistics, which is something I always like to do on infantry, etc, etc, and archers especially, and cav units, is I'm just looking around trying to see weaknesses in this line or this formation that he's trying to form up against me at the moment, and it's looking pretty even. At this point, this is where Macedon and Athens get into a big engagement there, and well, Sparta makes a move as well, so it's quite a coordinated attack actually on us. But at this point I'm not worrying too much. I'm just trying to keep my men relatively calm, well, keep myself calm in the situation, and just try and defend to the best of my ability. So at this point I decided to rush forward my Galatians for the small amount of charge bonus, because they have quite heavy defense. I thought if I just get that little bit of charge bonus, because his men really aren't doing that much, then it will help me out a little bit more. Now he does have pikemen in the middle there, and I was trying my best to avoid those pikemen, because I don't like getting into confrontation with pikemen from any direction unless it's behind with a group of cav or archers from a distance. As you can see here, I move my Cretans forward, because I kind of realised that I still have them to use, and that I'm being quite naive in not using them. This bit here with my peltas in the middle, he tries to catch them off guard with his pikemen, and I knew that was going to be his driving force down the middle if he could, but he's left them quite exposed, to be honest, and I start picking them off from the trees with my Cretans. Now, archers, especially the Cretans, were kind of the thing where if I pull them back to a safe distance and then use them effectively, they can be absolutely devastating to the strongest units on the enemy team, which is what I was trying to do to the Spartans here. So as you can see here, as he moves back his pikemen, it gives me the decisive opportunity in a way to actually go straight for his main lines or general unit, which charges in, and my Cretans can carry on picking off his men. Now, probably the worst thing that you could do with pikemen when they're being under charge or under attack via archers is turn them around to try and run them away, because they take even more casualties from behind. Because archers, that's where archers are most effective, is when the unit is running behind and you want to shoot them down, and archers are really effective in that situation. So as he runs away, you know, I do gain in a bit of an advantage there. And even at this point here, he is trying to catch me off guard here with my cav by bringing in spear units to back up. And that's one thing that I had to try and maneuver throughout the entirety of this battle itself, was trying to get around his spear units, because I couldn't engage much of his infantry without flanking them, because his army was pretty much based around and with the majority of spear units, because he's Sparta. So I can't just, you know, smash into a line of sword infantry to hold them off, because I'd lose more cav than it's worth. So in this situation when you're playing against Mediterranean, cav can be useful if used properly, but you know, it was quite difficult for me to try and keep track of them all without them getting caught up within a spear group, because that's one thing that a commander could do, is quite simply bring in cav to attack another person's cav to entertain them while they move up a spear unit to back up their cav. So I mean, that's the tactic, sorry, that I've seen many times, and that's what he did on the right hand flank when I had to move my cavalry back, because he was backing them up with spear units, and I knew that I'd pretty much get owned in that situation. But as you can see, his general melee units aren't actually any issue for my men, because they're just completely outmatched. Now usually in Rome 2 the swordsmen are generally much better than spearmen in terms of generally killing spearmen. So for instance, spear versus spear, you get a good, often even battle, but usually spear infantry are not very good at offensive play, so sword infantry are quite good at tearing through spear infantry, which does make sense, because in close combat the swords would have a distinct advantage, especially in the spacings, which would have took place, I suppose, in the Roman times as well. So I did have the distinct advantage in infantry against Sparta here, and with my Cretan archers still mainly alive and still with quite a bit of ammo, then things were looking quite positive. But at this point here we had one group of Helot archers which was still firing on my men, which was annoying me because they were making one of my groups rout actually, and I thought if I just run them down then that's pretty much Sparta finished off. So at this point I went over to check on my teammate, because everything looked quite promising over at my teammate's side at that point, well, a point where I checked earlier, and I turned around to look again and my teammate had been defeated, quite unexpectedly actually, and so I had to form my men in the best and most swiftly way possible. Now I think my enemy's main method here was to catch me off guard as such, or just get in there as fast as possible so that my men didn't have time to rest, etc, etc, because really my men at this point I was happy to just sit there and be quite defensive, because I had the ranged, the cav and generally the unit advantage. So I thought if I just played it defensively and let him come to me, that'd be absolutely fine. Now the main reason for this, and I tried to explain this to my friend yesterday, is, you know, he says, why do you play defensive whenever I bring out pikes? And I said, well, because generally pikes are very dangerous to play offensively against, because it can go either way. Now what I mean by that is, you know, I can charge and break through the lines fairly swiftly with the right units, but if I don't have those units at hand and they're engaged, etc, then I'm going to have a very difficult time and lose a lot of men just getting through one of your units. And that's something which he failed to understand. He was like, yeah, but you can break through. And I said, yes, but it's the amount of units it takes to break through in the first place and kill your pikemen that is the issue, because it gives you a chance while my infantry are entertained killing a big group of pikemen to then flank round and just squash my infantry, which is something that happened in a later battle that evening against my friend. So, you know, it's that type of thing. So at this point I was just sat here and I was like, right, okay, I'll let my soldiers rest up. I have the advantage here with cavalry ranged especially, and I thought he had two groups of pikemen actually still there on his side, but they were only, well, they were quite badly damaged. So I thought if I get my Cretan archers to primarily target the pikemen and see if I can whittle the weakest group down to running away before they even get here, then that means I'm going to have to deal with one generally, and that's a lot easier on my units, because he can't form like a little line of pikes, because one of his lines just is going to get completely obliterated. But at this point, I was fairly actually quite lucky to actually still have ammunition left in my ranged units, because I'd used them quite a lot in this battle in Rome 2. But as you can see here, his men are dying at a fair pace. To say, well, a fair pace, they're not really dying as much as I thought they would, because it's through groups of Cretans firing on them, but they did die and rout before they got into the battle, which gave me a bit of an advantage. Now at this point here, he tries to move his cavalry around in a ditch attempt, and I kind of catch him running back to his soldiers and pretty much corner him and take out his cav pretty goddamn swiftly. Now at this point here, it's pretty much a mass rout. As soon as I take out his general unit or his cav unit, his men start to waver, and all that's left is one group of pikes. Now I just basically just say, right, look, charge, okay, because I've got that many men and I can afford to do it. I can afford to just basically smash through the lines. It won't damage my men that much. And that pretty much wraps up the entire battle. So it was an interesting battle against Sparta, and you know, Athens versus Macedon, and it was probably one of the best battles I've played so far. I did really enjoy it. The battle I had after that wasn't so successful, but hey, you win some, you lose some. But thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, leave a comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in a bit. Thanks for watching.